19th of March 2024. This edition of Boerbeskuit, we're going to talk about some news. And I'm going to start with this one. DA supports draft LGBTQI+ guidelines in schools. The Western Cape Education Department has drafted the country's first gender identity and sexual confusion bill. This is something that I need you to think about and then listen carefully. They have XXX have basically succeeded in screwing our social lives. Relationships between men and women are being destroyed, marriages destroyed, and now they're coming for our children. And don't bluff yourself. The DA is part of that XXX gang. Remember, they're coming for our children now. Then we have this one. ANC plan to use your pension fund, SOEs will fail. The ANC's plan to force investment in government-approved projects won't help the economy. But they don't care whether it helps the economy. All they want is they want to get their hands on the pension funds. And the NHI bill, just remember what I'm telling you. It's also a scheme to steal the reserves of the medical aids. That's all they're interested in, nothing to do with providing health care to the population or what. They are so broke, they are absolutely desperate to get their hands on whatever money they have. And I feel sorry for the government pension fund members. That pension fund is being plundered at an enormous rate. You better watch out. And then we've got that thing of the ANC and MK now in the electoral court fighting about the MK party. The ANC wants that party deregistered. Well, all I know is if that happens, South Africa is going to be in a dark place. And then I have this one, I see things like this every day, everywhere. The biggest crime in history of medicine. We all know what happened. We know who the players were. We know who were the kingpins. We know who were the brains, and we know who were the executioners. But what does the population do? No, they just scroll past and look for the next tidbit, which they can give a thumbs up or a finger up or what. No action. Then we have this one. Major water crisis warning for Gauteng. Gauteng risks being plunged into a full-blown water crisis. Now, I have mentioned it in some of my Skidmarks. In '76, the CSIR did a study, and they came to the conclusion that South Africa has got a carrying capacity for 45 million people. At that number, there will be enough water for the people, and there will be enough water for agriculture. And today we're sitting with 65 million officially, and guesstimates of 25 million immigrants. That makes it 90 million people. Now, you may doubt the 90 million people, but look at the water. There's almost no big city anymore or town that doesn't have a water problem. Okay, the population has got a big thing with that, but the mismanagement and the neglect of the water management systems is to blame for most of it. They neglected maintenance on the water system that it is now so bad it cannot be repaired anymore. Maintenance is not going to do it. They'll have to refurbish. Now, to refurbish a major line means that all the users on that line is without water. And it's going to be for days. And the way that the productivity is in this country and how the municipalities operate in these BEE contractors operate, you're looking at parts that will most probably be without water for months. But that's what you have. That is what we have. That is what black majority rule has brought to South Africa. We must thank them for that. And then the fuckers want me to say sorry for being white or what. I'm glad I'm white. And this video, I looked at it, and it's a video with a compilation of what is happening in Gaza. It is horrendous. And I have said it to a friend last night. I don't care what religion you are, what ethnic group you are, none of that. There is no way that a decent human being cannot be absolutely furious for what those Zionists are doing in Gaza. That is a mass extermination of people that is happening there. It is brutal. And then let's go for some international news. Lindsey Graham visiting Kiev urges Ukraine to pass a mobilization law. Ukraine war hawk US Senator Lindsey Graham calls on Kiev to quickly pass a new mobilization bill that would make more citizens eligible to be drafted. The South Carolina senator questioned Ukraine's exempting men under 27 from fighting. This thing is a Satanist. This is a thing that said they'll fight Russia in Ukraine until the last Ukrainian. And it seems to me he is determined to get to that last Ukrainian. I saw an article a few days ago about what is happening in the cemeteries in the Ukraine. How many graves are popping up for women killed on the front line? Think about that. And this is a joke. Zelensky promises domestic defense production boost. The Ukrainian leader pledges came after a meeting with US Senator Lindsey Graham, at which both men reportedly discussed fears that Russian aggression and chaos will spread around the world if Kiev doesn't win. Later Tuesday, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin will host a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, his first overseas engagement since hospitalized. And I hear the Germans is also into this story of building military-industrial complex operations in Ukraine. Are they fucking stupid? The Russians will blow them to pieces as fast as they build them. But the West is in a flat panic. They made a major error by engaging in this war in the Ukraine. Most European countries are financially bankrupt. Most European countries are military disarmed. They are scrounging around to find ammunition for Ukraine. But yet, they keep on poking the bear. They keep on. During the elections of Putin now, in those 3 days, a number of civilians were killed in Russia from Ukraine attacks. The Russians fended off everything, but Putin warned them that there will be a price on what the Ukrainians were doing. So I have a feeling that we are going to see some serious action in the coming weeks. And the Turkish Foreign Affairs Minister reckons that Ukraine conflict won't end this year. It might be. I have a funny feeling that Ukraine war can end suddenly. But I am convinced that it will not end before Russia has taken Odessa. Here's a joke. London strikes a $10 billion energy deal with a Russian gas importing firm. Despite insisting that it is driving Putin out of the market, Westminster has signed a 4-year deal with TotalEnergies gas and power a major importer of Russian liquefied natural gas to heat the public sector bodies. That's the hypocrisy, full speed. And I saw something else, maybe you have heard about it. Since I think 1956, the UK had an agreement with the Russians that the UK can fish in Russian waters in the Arctic. And about 2 weeks ago, the Russians refused to renew the contract because the thing is coming up every 2 years for renewal, or 5 years or something like that. And they refused. And I believe that something like 60% of the fish that is used in fish and chips in the UK comes from that Russian waters. There's an interesting little tidbit. Fewer Americans see China and Russia as the top US threats. Only 41% of Americans now see China as the US's biggest threat, according to the latest Gallup poll, down from 50% last year, with only 26% saying the same about Russia compared to 32% last year. Slowly but surely the people are waking up. 3 people injured in Ukrainian militant shelling of Russia's Belgorod region. And I'm looking here at a video of a rocket that went into a private housing complex. And I have to talk about the presidential election in Russia and the fact that Putin won with, I think, something like 87%, 82%, something like that. And what is, for me, almost hilarious, Putin got that vote, running against 3 other opponents. None of them made it. I think the highest one scored 4% or something like that. But the West calls Russia a dictatorship. And Zelensky cancels elections in the Ukraine. And the West calls that a democracy. That is the hypocrisy that we have to live with. Listen to this one. Armenian PM warns of a war if border issues with Azerbaijan not finalized. Speaking to voters, Nikol Pashinyan said that the issues around formal delimitation and demarcation of the Armenian-Azerbaijan border must be resolved, otherwise there is a risk of a war breaking out at the end of the week. Now, just for those that are not so on top of it, this guy from from Armenia, he is in the pockets of the West. He's a Western puppet. And as usual, the West wants to use him to cause shit on Russia, or near Russia. And they don't care what's going to happen there to the people, as long as they can poke the bear. Now listen to this brave man. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin promised that Washington will not let Ukraine fail, even as further aid remains stalled in Congress and Kiev's forces face munitions shortages. These guys better wake up. And then this is something that I am very upset about. Israel may be using starvation as a weapon of war, says the United Nations. According to the UN, deaths from hunger and food shortage are being caused by comprehensive Israeli restrictions on the import and distribution of humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. I cannot believe that the world is allowing this to happen. I just cannot. Here's a little something to smile about. West wary of Mexico's ties with Russia. Oh, and also RT. The Hill has expressed discomfort at Moscow's ties to Mexico, citing significant diplomatic presence and President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's and his coalition's alleged affinity for Russia. RT also received a nod in the piece from the former US ambassador, who was especially triggered by the glorious green and black ads in the Mexico City subways. RT reports from site of the Belgorod attack. Ukrainian armed forces have attacked Belgorod region multiple times in the past 24 hours. One child is known to have been wounded so far, according to local officials. I can see trouble coming. for sure. The Russians are not going to tolerate this type of thing. And now with the elections behind them, I expect some action. You listen to this one. France preparing troops for Ukraine deployment, says the Russian Foreign Intel Service head. 2,000 troops will be sent in the initial stage, says Sergei Naryshkin. Paris is concerned by the increasing number of French people killed in Ukraine, which has already exceeded psychologically significant threshold. As they say in the LSE palace, he added. Sooner or later, Macron will have to reveal the ugly truth, but he will strive to delay the confessions as much as possible. I cannot believe that the Western citizens is taking this. There's another joke. Russian, Belarusian athletes banned from the Olympic opening ceremony. Just hours after dubbing the upcoming World Friendship Games, taking place in Moscow in 2024, as cynical and purely politically motivated, the International Olympic Committee has ruled Russian and Belarusian athletes cannot take part in the Paris Olympic opening ceremony. How's that? But I think the rest of the world is going to start dumping these Western things. Here's an interesting poll. Vladimir Putin tops global leaders in citizens' trust. Citizens' trust rating. Vladimir Putin, 76%. Joe Biden, 39%. Macron, 27%. Rishi Sunak, 21%. Olaff Scholz, 14%. How's that? But Putin cares for his country, cares for his people. And there's a tidbit. DC's dirty little secret. Endless wars haven't benefited anyone besides the defense contractors. We know that. And let's end it. Western delusion shattered. Putin's firm stance on Ukraine highlights NATO's impotence. Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst, joined Sputnik's Critical Hour and explained Putin's approach to a possible battle with NATO, as French President Emmanuel Macron has toyed with the idea of putting boots on the ground. This business about Macron and some of the European leaders saying, oh my God, we can't let Putin win in Ukraine, it doesn't really square with what's reality here, because there is no way to prevent Russia from winning in Ukraine, except by the use of nuclear weapons, said Macron. The Western press has taken to accusing Putin's threatening to use tactical nuclear weapons, McGovern added, but he has not raised the issue of the tactical nuclear weapons. It is the US that is raising this, which makes me suspicious. In my view, the whole name of the game is to keep it going without an obvious defeat until November, so that Biden has some reasonable prospect of not having to run, having lost in the war. Let that sink in. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.